The Zone Coverage Podcast Network.
We're live.
Is that the open?
That's the open. I'll cut this out.
Nope,
We're good.
Nope, that's the open. We are live on the Minnesota Soccer Podcast for another week. Thanks, Tom.
Alex Conover, by the way, will have Minnesota Soccer Podcast on the logo instead of.
We're gonna have a better logo.
Yes, because we were in Burnsville for the football, what the Americans call football, since this is a soccer podcast. And I was surprised how many Loons fans were there. And we kept on pitching them on the show, and I was like, they're going to find it really weird that, like, on iTunes we're the Minnesota Soccer Podcast, but it still is called Omaha FC. So hopefully by the time they actually get this, it will be Minnesota Soccer Podcast.
I'm excited. Do I get a t-shirt of this one, too?
Yeah, I should have Conover create t-shirts for this podcast specifically.
Because I'll rep that, too.
Yeah.
My Wolves Wired shirt, we got to get the Minnesota Soccer Podcast shirt and wrap it up.
That'd be down for a shirt.
Yeah.
So we're in a relatively celebratory mood because it's not a loss. They didn't lose. They broke the losing streak. Welcome home, Minnesota United.
Yeah.
Home sweet TCF Bank Stadium got the 2-1 win.
From my unbiased and non-fandom perspective, celebratory for variety's sake. Yes.
Oh, you like to see something different?
Yes.
Yeah, so we get to talk about different things than we have for the last month, Nick.
If they were the Twins,
True
they just pump out 8 of these. Is a 3-game losing streak in soccer 8 games for baseball? Do you think, or is that even? I don't even know how.
I think
you
it's a
convert
simple
that.
math. No, I think there is a simple way to convert this math equation.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into.
Yeah,
I don't really want to talk
I'm not a math guy.
However, if we're going to make the baseball crossover happen, there's no MLS equivalent for a team quite as bad as the Reds to lose a series to, Tom.
That is
Darn. That is a MLS to MLB burn.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's been close. Oh no, it's not been close.
It hasn't been close. They got their butts whooped today.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, so there's your Twins moment of the podcast. Anyway, we should talk about soccer because it was an interesting afternoon back at TCF Bank Stadium for the first time in literally a month. The last time they were there was March 31st, and now they've got almost a homestand. They're here. The Minnesota United is in Minneapolis every weekend through Memorial Day. The only game in their next 6 that's not a home game is a Wednesday game at LAFC's brand new stadium, which just opened today for the first time, which that should be a cool and very challenging road fixture to do.
Yeah, they're playing. LAFC's playing Seattle right now.
Where do you guys remember where LAFC played before they opened the stadium?
They were on the road for most of the season.
It's such a funny league that, like, in the middle of the season, it's like, oh, we're playing here. Like, I'm sure it's going to be a better crowd because it's actually designed for soccer and all that, like better sidelines and all that. But
well, and that better sightlines, better sound. Because one of those things, like if you have a stadium designed for a smaller crowd that's right up to the pitch, like Minnesota United's new stadium is going to be, it's going to be better for the fan experience. It's going to be better just for everything involved as opposed to the football stadium that they're only ever going to fill half of.
Right.
Which is what we've got here. Even though Minnesota United does create a relatively good fan and sound experience within the stadium.
Yeah, I saw some tweets that people felt. Again, that's not something I always really dive into or look real closely at always, but I saw some tweets that people thought the atmosphere at TCF this weekend was exceptional.
I've been nothing but impressed by it, especially like last year when I was just down in the stands. Like the supporters groups make the noise, and it's hard to do that to really fill up a football stadium like they do, but they lead stuff well. They have chants that people know that people outside of the supporter sections can do, and it creates a good atmosphere. Like that was some Miguel Ibarra talked about after the game that they've got a home field advantage because of the fans, because of that.
Yeah, I'm excited. That new stadium looks finished from the highway. Obviously, as you get closer, you're kind of like, yeah, it's not, but I go back to, I know you wanted it in Minneapolis, but I think that's such a great place where if you live in either city, you're going to see it at some point because everyone kind of crosses through 94.
I think that's like almost one of the biggest benefits of the location that they chose is like how visible it's going to be constantly.
And it's right on the light rail. It's easy to get to for just about everybody from anywhere in the city. Like,
I mean, I feel like Atlanta's is the one weird one where you can do like a non-soccer stadium and it works because it's indoors, right? It's the new Novel Stadium and they fill it. Outside of that, does Seattle even fill it, right? It's just like diehard fans. But
it's like they make it slightly smaller for Sounders games, but they do fill whatever they keep open, essentially.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't know what capacity for Minnesota United games are, but they announced attendance of over 21,000 again this weekend, and this isn't even one of the
and I think it's 20 in the stadium, so my guess is they probably have some standing room or whatever.
Yep.
But
it's still a little surprising, that number, though.
Because it didn't look all the way full, so I'm suspecting that it was a little bit like tickets sold.
Yeah.
And the crowd did get a little thicker, like, as the game went on. Not because they were eating concessions food, just like it filled up more.
Can you imagine?
But
you're like, wow, everyone's
you
getting
can
fat.
see the nacho. You can see the nacho cheese just oozing through the audience.
Yeah.
But so the atmosphere, it did fill up more as the game went on. But it's that to me that last night was like the first summer nights game.
Which
is like it is, and I've said this numerous times on the show. It is just glorious because it's like this time of night where it's not too hot, it's not too cold, the sun's setting, it's just gorgeous. It's like it's a weekend, it's a Saturday night, night, so it's like such a great time to be doing something. Like it's idyllic out there, so that's what surprised me is that it wasn't completely.
It was
packed.
a perfect night to go to a game.
That's what I'm saying.
The other thing I think of is for baseball, the reason why the Twins, which everyone knows it's cold, right, have these big homestands is because no one wants to play in the beginning of the season, even if you have a dome, because they want kids out at the park and all that. And soccer's interesting that it's hitting prime time for soccer, I'd assume, right? Especially outdoor soccer.
Yep.
And they're already kind of quite their ways into the season. So I assume it'll only get better as kids are off. You can kind of bring the family out there. But and you said with the temperature and all that. But
it's actually like a small little nugget that as you guys know, I'm deep into the Minnesota youth soccer scene with what other things I do. And this weekend, even more so, would be a time where soccer players would have been available because a lot of grass fields aren't ready yet. You can't go on them.
Yeah.
So so many kids would not have the problem of having a soccer tournament in Rochester or Duluth or in Bloomington. They would have been available, which is kind of interesting. More to the reason of why I don't know why it didn't sell out.
The thing that I'm curious about with a direct comparison that we'll see next weekend is what the crowd looks like. We saw the 7:00 crowd this weekend. Next weekend's a 1:00 game, the afternoon matinee type game. So I'm interested to see if there's a visual difference in the crowd. If it's a smaller crowd, bigger crowd, whatever you have going on, it's supposed to be just gorgeous again. So
right.
I don't see any reason people shouldn't be there. But it's a little interesting thing that we're seeing. And then I know they've got a Sunday game I think in a couple of weeks too. So that's another different wrinkle in the system. It's different people, different stuff going on.
I always find it funny that MLS has Sunday games, and I don't know why that matters to me, but it did throw me off. What was that, a couple of weeks ago when they had one? And at some point you kind of get in a rhythm, especially with once a week sports.
Yeah. I don't like it, to be honest. I like the consistency.
Is that to get on national television?
It is for some of those games, right? So Seattle and LA right now is on ESPN.
Yeah.
And so I know that's the reason that they're playing on Sunday.
Well, and that was last week. Minnesota was on the Minnesota-Seattle game was on ESPN too.
Right. And yeah, exactly.
So they play.
And that was on a Sunday.
Yep. Saturday the 5th, Saturday the 12th, Sunday the 20th, and then Saturday the 26th, the next 4 weeks, in addition to the Wednesday game. So we should talk about the actual game because I thought it was a really interesting game. Minnesota did win 2-1 with a penalty kick goal from Darwin Quintero and Ibson's second goal of the year. Ibson and Darwin Quintero are now leading the team in scoring on the year, which is... I don't think one of those two, well, considering one didn't play for the team to start the year, and the other one I don't think you would have predicted would be leading the scoring charts.
I don't think Ibson had a goal with United his entire career to this point.
I don't think he did either.
Until this season, yeah.
And his goal was very well taken.
Yes, it was.
That was an awesome goal.
Yeah.
So
classy titch.
I want to start with Nick and I were both at the game last night, and we split post-game media duty. So I actually went and heard and talked to the post-game availability from Atlanta's coach, Wilmer Cabrera, after the game. And he had...
Houston's coach. You said Atlanta.
Houston, sorry.
That's okay.
Thinking about the last home game. He had a quote that I thought was interesting. Because it's kind of I wrote about this in my recap on zonecoverage.com, which you should read. It was kind of the reverse of like the Atlanta game and of the Portland game, where in those games it had seemed like Minnesota might have been the better team on the night, but hadn't gotten the goals and hadn't put it together. His quote was almost exactly the same thing as that. Cabrera said, "It's disappointing because we were the better team on the field, that's for sure, no doubt. You can feel the respect. You can feel that we were going after them. We were creating options. But in soccer, in this sport, football, you score goals. That's how you make the difference." So it was Minnesota was on kind of the other side of the coin that they've been on the last couple weeks, where they might not have been the better team on the balance of play on the night, but they got the goals, they took their chances, and they came out with 3 points.
And that's so funny because, and like you pointed out, you went to talk to Houston's coach. I went to Adrian Heath's press conference, and Adrian said basically the inverse of that. He said, this felt like this, because, right, he said, like you pointed out, Heath said that numerous times. We've been the better team, or we've played well enough to win. And at his press conference, he said, this is probably luck that we deserved from previous weeks. I'm paraphrasing?
It's karma, baby.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you get your rewards at different times, and obviously I thought we got a little bit of reward for some of our play in the last few weeks.
Exactly.
That's the quote from Heath.
Exactly.
So it was an interesting game. So they gave up the early goal again.
Typical.
10 minutes in.
Set your watch to it.
Pathetic defense. The difference with this game as opposed to the last two is they didn't immediately give up a second goal.
Truth. I also didn't think it was a completely outrageously bad defensive allowed goal. I thought, Carter is just a little at fault to let that cross get off in the first place. But it was a sumptuous ball. It was a fantastically hit ball, and it was put into a phenomenally dangerous area, and they finished it off. I thought it was one of those situations where it's those are actually more the type of goals. It's okay, if you're conceding things like that from time to time, we get it. It's those other crazy bad goals that they allow. So, I thought that was a minor improvement. But still, nonetheless, early goals just got to stop.
The early goals have got to get cut out, and that was the thing is we had another week of United playing from behind, and really on the balance of play they were playing from behind and not really having the ball in the first half a lot of the time. Houston had a lot of possession. United were really wasteful with the possession they did have and just didn't do enough with what they were given. Especially the thing I was critical of on Twitter and while we were watching the game is that I didn't think that the back four were distributing the ball forwards with any intent other than just hoofing it out of their end. It wasn't looking to pass. It was looking to just let's get it out of our end for 15 seconds and not build any kind of attacking movement.
Yeah, but I think that's so you feel like maybe they should try to play out of the back more? Is that what you're implying?
I thought that they'd done a better job of it in past weeks than they did this week.
I think when you have what you know is a leaky defense, playing out of the back is a recipe potentially for disaster.
That's fair.
So I think that's definitely probably their marching orders, is to just clear it. And especially because when you play out of the back, a lot of times you eventually end up playing through the center of midfield. And as well as Ibson and Schiller have played at times this season, to me, the black mark on their records, one of the biggest so far, is both of their lack of quality distribution. And so if you're going to lean on them to help you play out of the back, which your center mids need to be your best players in that situation, I don't know that you want to do that either. Especially when Ibson does some of the crazy weird stuff he likes to do, and he did so in this game, and I wrote about it in the player ratings, is he's doing some... It's so funny, and it made me think of something I said at an earlier game this season, is Ibson giveth and Ibson taketh away, because he has the, amongst the best ability on the team, but because of that, he'll make really risque decisions and risque plays.
Is he cross-sport reference? Is he Dumba?
I haven't watched enough of The Wild to completely confirm that, but he'd be in. That makes sense to me what you're saying there.
Because like I think of for people that don't know, like a highly skilled defenseman who can score, but is not defensively responsible at times. And I'm trying to think of like
that's pretty good. But like, does Dumba like try to stick handle inside his own defensive zone like a ton?
Yeah.
To get out, then yeah. Does Dumba like feign injury like if he does lose the puck?
I have not seen that, but maybe he should. I don't.
It works for Ibsen half the time.
I'm not sure it's a thing in hockey, at least to the extent that Ibsen does it. I don't remember who I saw on Twitter during the game, but it was I saw somebody like getting mentioned on my timeline with anytime Ibsen goes down with. Anytime he's down on the field, I know that I've got time to go refill my coffee because he's going to be down for about that amount of time, and then he'll be back on the field by the time I'm back. Which he did like 3 different times.
I think you took. I think you couldn't remember it, but I said that to you. I was like out of water we were in the press box, and I was just like waiting to get another water because I was really thirsty. And I said to David, I was like, I just need Ibsen to like get fake injured here so I can go get another water.
And it's within the boundaries of the game. Like you see, especially like when a team is winning close to the end of the game, you'll see guys do that all the time. The Atlanta game was notorious for their entire team doing that.
Is this something you worry about for soccer in general? Like, I feel like it's not a great image that like you're like that guy's not hurt.
It isn't. It isn't. But I just feel like the people who are most upset by it like voted for Trump, so I don't give a crap. What they have to say.
That's a spicy take.
No, I mean, I think it's a little bit like Oregon had that crazy offense, right, in college football, and people would fake injuries so that they didn't have, like the defensive players would fake injuries so that they wouldn't have to deal with their offense. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of what soccer does. Like, soccer probably looked at that and they're like, guys.
It happens.
Except for soccer's way older sport.
No. I'm saying they're like, we do this all the time.
It happens in the NBA too for the same reasons.
Yeah.
It's just not as obvious where guys will be down on the floor and need to get some water, needed time.
But like in hockey, it's a penalty. Like, do you feel like this is something? Sorry, I'm going down a weird rabbit hole, but like, is this something you worry about with soccer? Like, it's just a weird.
No,
I'm not worried. I know. And for those keeping score, we've got a Twins reference, a Wild reference, a college football reference, a basketball reference. So if you're scoring your bingo cards, you're getting close.
Have I missed anything? We got every sport covered.
We haven't talked about the Vikings.
I was gonna say Vikings.
It's coming.
Yeah, Lynx.
We'll
Get a Lynx. Find a Lynx reference. That's your challenge.
It is training camp for the Minnesota Lynx right now.
Right.
So,
right. Mitch Hansen's on it.
You guys,
plug,
your
plug,
segues have to be. Okay, fine. It's a plug.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take it. That's fine. Plug.
Man, it is hard to get my train of thought back once we get off that.
We did cover every sport.
I think my point that I want to just drive home is that Ibsen needs to be really careful about some of the stuff he's doing and it's so funny because team's on a 4-game losing streak and he hasn't been terrible, but he as one of the best players on the team and as a centerman has taken a pretty good amount of responsibility for that. And he hasn't been exceptional, like I said, with his passing this year. And so for me, when he had that poor first half and he almost turns it over in some really bad spots, it's like, dude, I don't know that you're going to stay in the lineup. And then he goes on and scores one of the best goals of the season and the game-winning goal. Just points to like a guy that's just like, it's so fascinating to watch.
Is he the biggest wild card?
Yes.
That's what I called him
Yes.
in the player ratings. I said he's the team's wild card because. Yeah.
Which it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a wild card on your team because sometimes you just get stuff out of nothing. And that was like that last goal was totally out of nowhere and was a fantastic goal.
And that was and that's the really comical part about it too, is like he's not even supposed to be in that position. Wild card, like, whoa.
So we're
like, how'd you get there? Because he's not supposed to make that run. And Heath even talked about it in the press conference, like both goals he scored this season, Heath has joked like he shouldn't even have been there.
Is Heath cool with this, or is he like half being like, guys, like?
I think he's cool with it because he knows like Ibsen is a guy he's got to ride or die with. Like Ibsen, like I've said, like. This team will go where like its best players take them, and Ibsen is one of those. So Heath got to be relatively cool with it, and he is. That's why he's joked about it.
Does he have the most leeway on the team?
Darwin does, because he's the best player, but Ibsen's definitely up there.
So we're talking about the goals. We've talked about Ibson's goal, which if you haven't seen it, if you've heard our implications, scored off of a cross Miguel Ibarra on a back heel between his own and a defender's legs into the goal. It's a goal that gets better every time I watch it, just because of the degree of difficulty to get the ball to go where it needed to go. It was unreal. It's unreal to watch in slow-mo.
I haven't seen it in slow-mo. I'd like to.
It's very interesting to watch. The first goal of the game was a penalty kick. You may sense a theme here. The pass was a long ball into the box for Darwin Quintero from Miguel Ibarra. So Nick and I talked in the box. Miguel Ibarra was my MVP of the game, and I think that both of us agreed on that. He was fantastic.
He was, and that ball that he served in to Darwin that earned the penalty kick was phenomenal delivery. When I've been going to practice, he's been playing on the right, and they've been working on his crossing a lot, and so you see it pay off there.
I feel like 3 or 4 episodes ago we were saying Ibarra and Ramirez were kind of losing stock.
It's a great point. I'm glad you make that point.
What is the change with those guys?
So David noticed a really good stat that kind of points out, because like Miguel pre-MLS was a guy who was like really sexy and making like splash plays, and now in the MLS he can't quite do that. So last night, where we kind of like we agree that he was basically man of the match for United, what he did was he put in great service exactly when it was needed, which if you just do that a few times a game is kind of enough to be a starter. And again, the stat that really backs up his overall performance, up until like the waning moments of the game, he was like 19 of like 20 for passes. He'd only missed one pass.
He missed 2 passes before the 85th minute out of about 20.
Yeah, and so if he's altering his game to be just like minimal errors and great service, which is different than what he was. But if he completely alters himself and changes what he brings to the table, that can be a player that functions.
And he comes in with like, you've got not only is he hitting just about every pass exactly where it needs to go, but they're all like, a lot of his passes are moving forwards. He has functionally 2 assists. He's got the pass that created the penalty, and he's got the actual assist for Ibson's goal. Like, all of his stuff is threatening, and it's looking in a forward direction that maybe we wouldn't necessarily have expected in a guy that's playing in a position that isn't where we anticipated to see him in the start of the season.
Well,
to some extent, right? Like,
no. I mean, he's a winger. But
on the right as opposed to on the left.
I feel like he was flip-flopping quite a bit last year as well.
Because we've seen him on both this season because of injuries, which is another topic we need to touch on.
For sure.
Because we talk about Ibarra and have the good stuff. Sam Nicholson was not as impressive as I think he's been earlier this season in his start replacing Ethan Finlay after the torn ACL. To Finlay, who's another one done for the season this year, another starter out of the lineup. And the move when Sam Nicholson came off and Colin Martin came on, I thought was a really interesting one, because what a lot of the comments after the game has been is it seemed to stabilize the team a little bit. Just not that Nicholson was necessarily doing anything bad, but Martin's presence just kind of calmed stuff down a little bit.
Well, I mean, and just last point on Ibarra, just quickly, is that he hasn't been doing this consistency has been a problem for him, and so he's had like 2 really good games this year. Last night in Chicago, and the rest have been meh. So like that's a problem, right? That's the other issue with Miguel is on last night. It's like this dude's great, like he should be in the lineup, and you know what I mean. So it's a consistency thing. With him.
The weird thing is he was the guy that went to Mexico, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I feel like as you move up leagues, or I think in other sports up levels, you have to have a different mentality and realize where your skill set is and how you fit in a team concept. And it's just kind of funny that it seems like he's figured this out now, and he said he's minimizing risk, basically, right? And
for now, I mean, I want to see it over a long sample size.
But to have success, it seems like he's realized I just need to minimize risk and set up other players, right? If I'm thinking about it really simply, and it was the Mexican league had to be better than
it is.
Right.
It is,
and it's just funny that I feel like that'd be a lesson you'd learn.
But he didn't really play. He only played in like 8 games.
Okay.
So he couldn't break into the team really.
Yeah.
And then when he didn't really play.
Huh. So maybe he's learning the league.
And honestly, you could argue that it really hurt his confidence. Yeah, he's definitely learning
the MLS.
Learning top division, right? He's really played top division soccer for only like 2.5 years at this point. Yeah. So he's been. You got to get right that if you look at it from that point, but I don't know. You got to be. You don't have how long do you have? Also. So, but I thought Nicholson was kind of poor, and I don't know why because I thought he's been one of the most consistent guys, and I really, for a lot of reasons, like his game, but I'm a little concerned. He's worrying me because he's like Finley, where it's just like. At times you look really good. You look pretty darn good, and other times it's like, dude,
it's
where
really
are
hot
you?
and cold.
And that's not good enough in a lot of ways, and so I don't understand why that is. Honestly, I'm a little bit perplexed.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you're again having to like. Somewhat through their own choice through the acquisition of Quintero, and several times not through their choice through the losses of Molino and now Finlay, they've had to alter that midfield attacking three a lot. So you've had a lot of different combinations of guys that have played together in different places through substitution. Nicholson's been in and out of that, coming off the bench and starting. And Molino was in, then he was out. Now Quintero's in, now he's out. Now Nicholson's starting. Now Ibarra's starting. Now, so they've just. It's one of those things like we've talked about the defense and how some of the pieces should be moving, but the attacking three have been moving a lot, and maybe just this was a week where it was a combination that didn't work as well within Nicholson's game.
Yeah, it's possible, but it's not usually great. It's not. You don't like to see it. I'm liking it from the player's perspective, but also just in general, it's not a good sign that the team looked a lot better when he was off, and that's a little worrisome. And I thought. But that also could have been a huge, because of the formation change. That seemed to be maybe the bigger reason that the team performed better afterwards, after the changes. So,
what did you think of Darwin's game?
Like his performance?
Oh, just overall. I'm curious about this. I haven't seen what you went with him in the ratings.
I thought he was exceptional. I thought, and it was cool because that was the first time I got to see him in person, right? Because his debut was away. It takes me back, because I can't believe that they got him for this cheap because he's so good, and he's just it's so evident that he's better than the thing I wrote in the player ratings was the first game made it clear he was going to be Minnesota United's best player. The second game made it clear that he might be the best player on the field on any given game, that depending on who they're playing against.
Really?
Yeah.
How many of the teams?
People come at. It's so hard to dribble around someone in soccer. It's unbelievably hard, and people are coming at him. He's not even in an advantageous position, and he beats them every time. If he's one-on-one, he beats them every time, and with this gusto and confidence, it's unbelievable.
And this is through opponents are already game planning for him.
How do you not, right?
Cabrera talked about this, how he thought that their midfielders overall dealt with him pretty well.
The Dynamo coach said that?
Yeah, Dynamo coach said that he thought in midfield he was dealt with pretty well. Which, the thing that I'd bring up, and this is actually, we reversed roles a little bit on this, there were things that I didn't like about Darwin's game last night just because I don't think his distribution in midfield was as good as it has been in the past. He had some really boneheaded turnovers that about got some people in trouble, which have not been characteristic of his game before. I'm looking at his passing chart from the game right now, and it's a lot more slanted towards the red side than some of the ones I've looked at from the game. Didn't have as many. He had the key moments, and he was there in the right places and was the difference maker. But at the same time, it's there also wasn't the consistency that I have expected from him in games past.
Yeah, I guess I might be a little punch drunk just because it's he makes certain plays and you're I know no one else in this team is ever going to be able to do that, and my goodness, that was so good. So I might be a little, right, like I said, a little drunk on that. But what I would say is it's very common for if a really good player is going to have a bad game in a certain area, it's really common that it's going to be in a passing situation, especially if you're a number 10, because you're put into these unbelievably tight windows all the time, and you have to make instantaneous decisions. And so, do you have a high turnover game? Makes sense, right? It's like a point guard in the NBA. Sometimes that's going to happen.
That's exactly it. When he was in possession of the ball and was just dribbling, he was unstoppable. He was unbelievable. When he had the ball on his feet and wasn't looking to pass, he was just making guys look foolish all around him. And that's the MLS chalkboard that I'm looking at to get a lot of these stats. It has a category for distribution, has a category for ball possession, which is essentially a dribble. When he has the chance to go into an open field, go straight like into an interaction with a defensive player. Really a lot more impressive on the ball possessions than on the passing, which is exactly what I would have thought watching his game, right? He's great dribbling and he can beat guys individually, but the passing wasn't as good as it has been in the past.
A couple of thoughts here. Is it difficult to figure out the translation league to league? Like, do you think that other MLS teams now would be like, I'd give him $3 million, right? Or whatever, give him more money because of how he plays in this league, but they underestimated or misunderstood like the skill level in this league and the skill level of the MLS? Kind of how that translates?
They know League MX super well because it's the nearest league and it's the most comparable. Like it
just seems funny
close.
that like he makes 1.5, right? There's some other team that would give him 2, right? Or something like that.
Or like the way they saved money is the transfer fee. It was only like $200,000, and that's what's bizarre to me is like why someone else wouldn't have.
The other question is like, do you think he's at his highest confidence because he figured out he can do this, and now he's like, I'm going to dribble around everyone and probably make riskier plays than he would otherwise?
Well, one of the main reasons might be like in League MX, there's a lot of his teammates would have been of a similar ability, and here it's like he knows he's the alpha male, and he's expected to like he's expected to be like holding the mic and belting. You know what I mean? Like he's
tapped into another maybe level for him because of his confidence.
But it's more just like you're going to make the most 3-point shots on your basketball team if you're considered now the best 3-point shooter. So you're going to get the most looks.
Put Shabazz Muhammad in Latavia or something like that.
If Shabazz Muhammad played in,
Latvia, wherever the ball played. Yeah.
Is that a purposeful?
Lithuania, guys. Lithuania.
But no.
You know what I was getting at.
I didn't when you said like Latavia. That I did not know.
That is my country.
That's not a country.
Right?
That was like the story you told off air earlier. But just on Darwin, it puts you in a different like headspace because it's like, yeah, dude. If I'm supposed to dribble, so if I lose it, it's fine because I'm the one who's expected to make plays. So it puts him in a really nice place.
Yeah. I didn't know you were done. Are you done? Are you done, Latavia boy?
I'm going to list countries that I think exist. We'll see.
List countries, but pronounce them in new ways.
Pronounce them in new and more exciting ways. So, quick bounce. I talked about Ethan Finlay's injury. We should talk that Christian Ramirez went off after half an hour of this game with an injury, which I thought that Mason Toye played well, but this is the most time he's had in an MLS game by far, and he was kind of, as all of the United strikers have been this season, kind of on the fringe of a lot of the play.
True. I've liked pretty much. I've liked a lot of what I've seen, and he shows like that. He always shows like a little bit of upside that really like gets you like, ooh, nice. I didn't think you had that in you, and so I'm fine with it actually. Like, and it's like, let's see what the kid's got. Like, I actually think it's like, especially in a team where it's like, man, postseason looks like it's a long shot. Like, let's see what everyone's got across the board. And so seeing a rookie, the number 7 overall pick, get some starters minutes, I think that's intriguing. To me, the narrative, one of the main narratives of this game going to the injury of, like, with Ramirez coming off at around the 30th minute mark, Finlay early in the week being diagnosed with the ACL tear, Molina already out, and Dunlawdy continuously injured, is like, what? And they're coming in with the 4-game losing streak, one of the longest losing streaks in franchise history. They got all these guys out. It's like, okay, like you have plenty of reason to lose this game. Like, it'd be understandable. And then they win. It's like, I thought that was pretty startling, that they were able to do that, all things considered.
Yeah,
that was fascinating.
If we think back to, if I'm remembering their opening day starting lineup right, they're now missing Mears, Molino, Finlay, Ramirez. Ramirez, all through injury of those 4 at minimum. And, like, what did what did Heath say about Ramirez? That we would know more later this week?
Yeah. But what the piece of information I would add is that Ramirez had a hamstring pull late last season, and it cost him like quite a bit of games.
Yep. So it's one of those, like, I know hamstring tears. Another NBA crossover. We've seen a lot of different like lengths of time out for this. Lucas Seahaver's talked a lot about the different grades of hamstring injuries. How it can go from like a 7 to 10 day absence to like longer than that to significantly longer than that, like a 4 to 6 weeks thing for a higher grade thing. So it's one of those. I expect we're going to know more about it. They've got a busy schedule in May, so if it's interesting if they're down to just Toy for healthy striker depth, that's a problem.
Right, if he's the only guy for sure.
Is now that you've
Dunlady was questionable. He was listed as questionable, so it sounds like he'll be available at some point soon. So,
out of curiosity, you've seen Toy and you said he's the number 7 pick, right, from last year. How does that draft look? Because on draft day there was such a positive response. It seemed from the media.
How does Minnesota's
draft look? Especially because these guys are forced into action.
You're going to have me grade the MLS draft as a whole. I was like, oh my god.
No, I mean not right now.
Keep in
5 minutes.
Keep in mind, Toy played an hour of this game and was fine. Carter Manley now started his second or third straight game because of Tyrone Mears' injury. It was two starts now, and he's appeared in at least one more game over the international break. And he's been. I didn't think he was great this game. He had some eye-popping mistakes, but he also had some great recoveries.
In a vacuum, yes, he was not great, but considering context,
Bingo.
He's a second-round pick. He's a rookie starting his second game ever. I think I've been really impressed with him.
So that's like you've got 2 of your rookies already contributing right now to the squad at the top level. You've got Wyatt Omsberg, who just was loaned out to the Tulsa Roughnecks in the USL, played 90 minutes for them in a 1-1 draw.
You know who played for Tulsa Roughnecks?
Andy Lore.
Former co-host of this podcast.
No way.
Andy Lore.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Omsberg's down there. He's going to be playing 90 minutes every week. He's going to be developing in that setting since he's probably not going to be getting time for the big team. So, like, they've done a really good job of not only having these players, but...
Why did he go to Tulsa, not St. Louis?
Right, that's a good point because they made that announcement, or it was like earlier that
kinda,
like, but it might have
maybe
been
more PT.
But no, exactly. It might have just been a fit thing. St. Louis might have been like, dude, we've got 8
center backs. Tulsa's like, all of ours are hurt. We need somebody, please.
Is that a competitor? Is Tulsa a competitor to St. Louis?
Yeah, they're both.
They're both in USL.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny. Yeah.
But it's one of those things like with any minor league system is like the most
do the best for your players.
The most important thing is the player development and the playing time.
Yeah.
So it's like if he's gonna that loan deal was announced on Friday and Saturday he starts and plays 90 minutes. Like he's in there.
He played 90 minutes for Tulsa?
Played 90. He started in the back and played all 90.
Nice.
1-1 draw.
Nice.
I don't remember who they played. Not even
St.
a little bit. It was not St. Louis. I would have remembered that because that would have been funny.
Yeah.
But so that's like you look at that and you've got those 3. You have the acquisition of Matt Lampson, which is now looking less wise. Also, shout out to Bobby Shuttleworth, who was amazing, and one of the reasons that game was a win.
Oh my goodness, absolutely! Like, what a freaking save! Arguably save of the season thus far.
And you guys had said on this pod that because he was the starter last year, right?
Yep.
And that he maybe would shine with more opportunity.
Yeah. It was so interesting because I don't think, like I said when we discussed it then, I don't think Lampson's done anything to overtly lose the job. But it was a bit bizarre that he had the job in the first place because it was Shuttleworth's job last year. And Shuttleworth did this on a regular basis. It was weird. Like, career kind of backup MLS goalkeeper, and like he got a starting job and he would like make stunning saves. And last night he did it again, and it was like he made like 5 or 6 of those last year at least, and they were just like, you shouldn't have saved that.
Is it because he's out of position, or is it because he's
no?
Okay.
He's a freak, freak save.
And the one that was the visually most impressive was the one right before Ibson's goal in the
That's the one I'm talking about.
Minute.
That's what I'm talking about.
The one that was almost more impressive than that was his response to a ball played into his box in like the 85th, 86th moment, where he got out of his box to a threatening ball like right inside the 6-yard, got to it, got it cleared out of the way, got his hands on it.
That's the thing, and like
he was more aggressive moving to balls than Lampson was, which I know was a complaint about Lampson's
That's
game.
what I was just gonna say. Is like, I don't know Lampson, and I don't want to disrespect or dishonor his family name, but like he just like He just looks so laissez-faire a lot of times when he's in the box, and I'm sure from a technical standpoint he's a very talented goalkeeper, but he doesn't come with doesn't seem like he has that much intensity. And when Shuttleworth's in there, it's just he is rah ripping, communicating, yelling at his defense, but not just yelling at him, looking at him dude, literally I will kill you if you do that again, that type of look in his eye, and it honestly helps the defense, I would argue. And to David's point, he is coming for that ball, and it means everything to him. And I think, And so what came out, and I didn't realize this, and this is a really important nugget to all of this. I don't remember where I read it, but actually it came out that he was early season. He was dealing with vertigo, and so that's probably why he didn't start. Is because it messed up a ton of his preseason work. And I think it may even carried over early in the season. That's why Lampson started. Mm-hmm. So now he's fully healthy.
So now everything makes sense.
Exactly.
I will say, if you are at a Minnesota United game and have the opportunity to watch stuff going on outside of the 90 minutes of play, watch Bobby Shuttleworth warm up. Or watch any keeper warm up. But I noticed it when Shuttleworth came out from halftime. He was warming up with his goalkeeping coach, and the stuff he does just for his range of motion and his predictive movement just to get himself ready and into it. I know it's a thing a lot of keepers have watched. I saw a thing with Gianluigi Buffon and some of the stuff he does to warm up. But it's one of those things that it's really interesting to watch that you'll never see on TV is goalkeeper warm-ups and the things they do just to get their eyes right and their motion right and their reactions right. It's really cool to watch.
Is it
nice.
Is it like a hockey goaltender that they track and do all that stuff, or is it more physical?
Not a huge fan of goalies, so I don't really watch.
Ben Remington is upset at you right now. I'm sure you heard this.
I've met Ben once. I was kind of just fascinated by what David was saying. Sounds interesting. I want to watch it.
I just happened to catch my eye when the team was coming back out from halftime. It's just he was working with. It's one of the things I see Basketball Reference again because I've covered a lot of this. You see guys who have their particular assistant coaches they work with to do specific things in warming up. I always remember Ricky Rubio and Ryan Saunders would work together a lot just on reaction time things, shooting stuff, whatever needed to get done. Is you've got your guy with that, and I'm assuming. We're not going to make any assumptions about United coaching roles this week, but I'm sure United have a goalkeeping coach, and that's probably who he was working with just on stuff like that. So that's just one of those little things that you notice when you're at the game. That's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Couple last thoughts on lineup stuff before we move on to looking ahead at next week. Any thoughts on Alexi Gomez's 12-minute debut?
He looks sprightly, and small is a small sample size. You can't take really much from anything, but I thought he looked pretty good. And it was relatively impactful for that short amount of time, which is a good sign. And he kind of, said the same in his presser, so that's a good sign. The dude is one of the few guys on this team that has had, by other talent evaluators, the ability to play in Mexico's top division, and that says a lot. That's where Darwin came from. Miguel, who had the man of the match performance, has played in League MX, and now Alexi Gomez is one of the only other guys on this team that has had that ability to do that. So it spoke well of him, for sure.
And so this is the first game Gomez was eligible for. I know all of his paperwork got done on Thursday or Friday, and it had sounded like from Start Bean's Megan Ryan that he'd been dealing with some kind of flu illness this week, so he maybe wasn't 100%, but it was still good to see him get his debut. He looked up for it. He had awesome shoes, bright red shoes that you could see all the way out from the press box in TCF Bank, just clear as day.
I would say another endorsement from you want to go inside or behind the scenes, you gotta take little moments to read, and you can, if you know soccer, you can read and expand it. And the fact that Alexi Gomez plays in that game, in that situation, that quickly of joining the team, when you have other guys who have been with the team most of preseason, that says a lot. Like France Pangop, who is a Cameroonian international and saw brief minutes early in the season, you assume that he's been chomping at the bit to get on the field. And Alexi Gomez comes into the team, has flu-like symptoms, and he plays. That tells you you don't need Adrian Heath in here to tell you that says a lot about what Adrian Heath thinks of him. So that's a big deal.
Coming in to protect the lead for those last 15 minutes. That's a crucial
that says
role.
a lot to me.
Are shoes important? Going back to that, like, is that? Sorry, this is what I take away from this conversation.
I love looking at soccer soccer cleats.
I'm dropping soccer intellect, and you're just wait, what color are shoes?
I thought it was super fascinating, but you said you could see the shoes from the press box.
Okay, let's go with this. What do your game cleats look like when you play?
Mine right now.
Are you like classic black and white? What do you rock?
They're like this shiny purple. That's a fact.
Mine are black and electric blue.
Okay,
there you go.
So important.
But soccer cleats are typically super can be neon colors is the most normal thing.
It's the difference between them and basketball shoes is you can't walk around in regular life wearing cleats.
I mean, you can.
No, Tom. I have a pair of Jordans that I just bought this week that I wear to work and wear doing stuff out and about.
But what if you wear cleats?
I'm not wearing my cleats to work, Tom. Sorry, I'm not doing it.
I want to do a whole podcast on what's so cool about Jordans. I don't get it. I'm gonna be honest.
There are basketball guys who have the podcast for that you.
I believe it.
Highly recommend because the shoe industry is crazy.
I know,
and it's and you see it even with cleats. There are guys who have these endorsement deals and commercials and advertising campaigns and all this stuff out there, but it's
beyond the MLS level.
Beyond the MLS level, but it anytime you have Nike releasing a new soccer shoe that Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi is releasing, Nike and Adidas and Puma are just out there doing all this big advertising campaign. The thing with Jordans and with basketball shoes is they've become also fashion in addition to being functional basketball shoes. They've crossed the divide between both of them, which is so interesting.
But that's what I don't get about them is I feel a lot of them don't some of them are okay, that's a sick shoe, but most of them that's not a cool shoe, and I would never wear that with any of the outfits that I wear when I'm trying to impress people or going out or whatever.
That's basically my read on every Nike that gets Nike basketball shoe gets released. Is I like 25% of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
some hits, some misses. You'll have that, and everybody's got their own stuff they like. Same thing with soccer cleats. When I was a kid, I would only wear black and white 3-stripe Adidas cleats because I thought they were the coolest, most classic thing ever. You wear the 3 stripes, that's the look. That's what you do. But bright colors are also pretty cool because one of those things when we're watching from our seats in the press box up at TCF. We're a long ways away from the field. You've been up in that press box. You are a long ways away from the field of play.
Yeah.
So when you're looking down, your eyes get drawn to if somebody's got orange cleats on, or if somebody's got Gomez's red cleats.
So the fans are
drew
seeing
my
it too.
eye immediately. It's you can see where the shoes are on the field. It's one of those interesting things. So there's that sidebar, which is it's an interesting thing. Cleats cost way too much money. That's my last thought. Last lineup thought. I loved Rasmus Schuler's game. I told Nick this in the press box. Rasmus Schuler was awesome. He needs to pass more accurately.
Yes.
But his
interceptions and tackles were
everywhere in the defensive third. Just all over the field in passing lanes, doing what needs to be done, getting turnovers. I was so impressed with his game.
He over even just in this however many games in the season we are, he to me to this point has very much proven he's the best interceptor on the team, and that's a great trait to have. And
it's interesting because if we loop back to where all of this discussion kind of started with Ibson, that pairing is interesting because Ibson has these urges to go forward, as we've seen with scoring the goal. So then his partner in defensive midfield with Schuler has even more to cover. If we think about where Ibson's doing. So the fact that Schuler is doing this and excelling in that role with a partner like Ibson is interesting to watch to me.
Yes. And I think that's just a good point. The comic way to look at that would be maybe he has to do all that intercepting and tackling because he's playing with Ibson,
Well, he's doing two people's work essentially, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Because I go back to the MLS chalkboard on the game that I'm trying to get better at reading and figuring out what all the stuff do. If you look at the defensive tab, which has tackles lost, defensive blocks, interceptions, clearances, and recoveries, as its 6 events that it tracks, and you look at just Ibson and Schuler, the only stat in the defensive category that Ibson recorded during the game on Saturday was recoveries. which I feel like says a lot.
To be clear, this is MLS.com.
This is MLSsoccer.com, and you can look at this live in play during games. It's one of the coolest things coolest things they've done. It's way better than anything for a lot of other sports to cover because, like, I can't show this on the chalkboard, but I'm showing Tom right now. The chalkboard they have, you can highlight any player on both teams and events: shots, distribution, defense, ball possessions, discipline, and goalkeeping.
Like, it's crazy because it's like every single pass is like tracked and like recorded.
And you can check it for particular portions
How do
of the
they even
match.
do
I mean, that
actually,
tells a story. It's got to be a stats LLC guy or something, right?
It's
But you
Opta.
couldn't be one guy doing it. Like,
Yeah.
it's too fast.
The company that does it is a company called Opta, which is this is what they've done in European soccer, and they've expanded to world soccer for
That's
years.
amazing.
and years and
I wonder if
years.
it's like the NBA thing, like the player tracking or whatever. Yeah,
It's
but it tells a story.
well, it's like the only defensive stat Ibsen recorded is recoveries, which is so descriptive
What does
of
that
what
mean?
he does.
What does that mean?
I'm assuming
though?
it's that he screwed something up and got it back. I want to know exactly what it means so that I can make fun of it more.
Yes. Same.
Whereas, like, I know what an interception is, and Schuler recorded a bunch of different instances of all of these defensive things. Didn't lose a single tackle the entire game, and has instances of defensive involvement all over the field. So that's one of those things that it's like I'm still. As Nick points out, I'm still learning what this stuff means. I'm still learning like exactly what this entails, but it's one of those things where it's like I can see at this point in time, at this point in the field, that's where Schuler intercepted this pass that prevented a Houston move from going forward. And it's one of those resources like me coming from the world of NBA where the thing that I enjoy figuring out most is the analytics and the numbers behind that. I'm still learning how to do that side of things for soccer and finding the resources for that. And so this, like, learning how this chalkboard works and learning what these events mean is one of the things that I am really enjoying doing as I start to cover the team this year.
Absolutely, yeah. We were looking at it during the game, and it did enhance the experience of watching the game. It was fun.
So if you're watching at home, like MLSsoccer.com, it's their match center and it's just straight under the box score. So you go to the box score of the game, you've got goals, assists, shots, and whatever. Scroll on the bottom of the page, and they've got the chalkboard.
Especially
that you can put
for
whatever you
soccer,
want
where
on it.
there's not as many mark stats, right? There's not as many goals, assists. It's nice to have something.
It's good
the
to have a visual.
It's like the opposite of that, though, because it's like everything is tracked. It's like, whoa. We went from nothing to everything.
It's like looking at a shot chart in the NBA, right? Like you see where the shots are coming from, what kind of shots they're doing.
Hey, Wiggins.
Yeah, let's not. We're not talking about Andrew Wiggins on this podcast. We talk about Andrew Wiggins too much. Okay, yeah, no, we're transitioning on because I'm not going to let Tom bait me into that.
I actually have a hot Wiggins take right now, but not right now.
You owe us an appearance on Wolves Wired, and we will discuss that when you are on that podcast.
Just drop a.
I owe it.
Yeah, because Tim came here.
Yeah? You got to come to Wolves Wired.
I went to Wolves Wired already. I beat Tim to doing that.
You got to get Tim to come on this podcast again. That's what we're saying.
I'm so confused.
Whatever.
It's a home and home.
Saturday.
And home.
This coming Saturday, Minnesota United welcome the Vancouver Whitecaps to TCF Bank Stadium. Vancouver is currently second in the Western Conference, which surprised me.
Is that good?
It's pretty good.
That's good.
But the interesting thing, and this is early season results, is
That they have soccer in Vancouver?
No.
Aren't they popular? The team?
They're one of the Pacific Northwest teams that has this huge heritage of soccer.
Do they have a huge following?
I heard Portland, Vancouver.
That.
Yeah.
Well, they're
Seattle.
in that whatever league that the Portland and Seattle have their heritage, and Vancouver's in there too. They have the Cascadia Cup. That's all three of those teams.
Because Vancouver's a
in there,
warm
too.
weather city. Like I don't think it snows much there.
Weird.
Yeah.
So Vancouver come in 13 points, currently second in the West, but won last weekend after losing 3 straight, including getting absolutely slaughtered by Kansas City 2 weeks ago, 6-0. Vancouver's interesting to me. I was doing a little prep for this before we were looking at stuff. They have had 3 red cards in 9 games this season, which doesn't seem great, and had one this weekend in their 2-0 win. Which is one of my favorite dumb soccer things. Can you guess why their player got a red card / his second yellow card this weekend, Nick? It's one of the dumb yellow card rules.
That's a
Did
super
the Randy
vague
Moss?
question.
Did the Randy Moss? No.
What's the Randy Moss?
The fake moon.
No. It was related to a celebration though. He took his shirt off.
Yeah.
You can't do that in MLS?
No,
taking
you
your
can't
shirt
do that
on
either.
any soccer league, taking your shirt off is a yellow card automatically. Goal scorer had a yellow already, took his shirt off,
Oh, that's outrageous.
got his second yellow and got sent off.
That's outrageous.
So it's
It's not crazy to score a goal, take your shirt off, and get a yellow. That's super normal. To do it when you're already on a yellow, that's just dumb.
Yeah, so that's Christian Teixeira, who's Vancouver Whitecaps midfielder, did that after he scored a penalty kick.
Wow.
Got himself
a penalty?
It was after he scored a
That's
penalty
even dumber.
for their second goal.
That's stupid.
Got himself sent off and will be suspended for this game on Saturday.
Wow. That guy, he must be like 21 years old.
This is his fourth year in MLS,
Oh, okay. Jeez.
all of which were Vancouver, and he started for them most of the time.
I'm concerned.
So I see this. I know nothing about this game. I didn't watch anything. I've barely watched any of the videos from it. But when you see somebody get sent off for getting their second yellow for taking their shirt off, one of the dumbest, most easy to know yellow cards you're going to get because it's in the rules of the game.
I heard this is my trashy take of the week, which I don't have many. I heard
Don't
someone.
you?
He
I
said
heard,
that like someone who has a lot and needs to tell people that they don't have a lot.
I heard someone tattooed a soccer kit onto their body. So,
That wouldn't surprise me at
so
all.
we're really wearing a soccer kit.
Please forward that to me.
I will, because I think this is what this guy needs to do and walk out with it and see how long it lasts before someone notices.
And I know this has happened before. I feel like I've remembered hearing about this happening in leagues across the world, but it's just dumb. It's just dumb. So the all-time Minnesota Vancouver series is they've played 2 games because Minnesota's been in MLS for a year.
Yeah.
There was a 2-2 draw last time Vancouver was in Minneapolis last year, and then Minnesota got whooped 3-0 by them in September when nobody cared. So I don't know what to make of this game because, on the surface of it, if you just look at the standings, Vancouver is sitting pretty at the top of the West, but they also are not in a great run of form and are missing one of their starting midfielders. So Heath talked about
It's just gonna be a tough test either way.
Yeah.
It's gonna be. They're obviously pretty good. I think you're right to point out that they're not in a great run of form, but they're gonna be fine. They're gonna be pretty good. They're gonna be better than Houston. You know what I mean? So
we talked a little bit about the goal scoring charts from United. You have at the top of Vancouver's goal scoring charts for the year Kai Kamara, Brek Shea, proven longtime MLS players, U.S. national team.
Kamara plays for Vancouver.
Kamara plays for Vancouver.
Oh, God.
Yep.
5'2", 5'1", Vancouver.
That's crazy.
And so Kamara and Brek Shea both. Brek Shea's a U.S. national team player in the past. Former U.S. men's national team player. Kamara, I believe, plays for the Sierra Leone national team, if I remember right.
Does that count for anything, though?
He's the best player.
I think if Tom got some practices in with me in the offseason, we could maybe get him on the Sierra Leone bench.
I could goaltend. I'm big.
We just
Take
gotta
up
get him a
space.
passport. That would be the hardest part.
Okay. Can we at least start with Gibraltar?
I'll start with Latavia.
This is really
Latavia, right?
Yeah,
Lithuania.
this is all coming. I think this is how we have to end the show. This can come full circle now.
Because shout out to the Gibraltar men's national soccer team.
They'll call me The Rock.
Who I believe got their first point ever a while back. Because it's half the population of the island in the matchday squad.
Exactly.
The fact that they're a FIFA certified federation and they have to play in the European qualifying process for the World Cup is kind of hilarious. Also the Faroe Islands, which are another one that there are these tiny
I'll be the
things.
Sphinx. I got nicknames.
Get out.
My God.
That was really awful. My God.
I might just take my headset off.
Yeah, we're just gonna leave Tom to just laugh himself until he turns the podcast off and just be done with this. Yeah. So Vancouver are coming.
Yeah, please.
Yep.
Anything else?
That's Vancouver. It's happening. Minnesota. So the point I was trying to make before Tom got crazy is he talked about the win on Saturday as the start of a little platform to build on with this run of home fixtures coming up. You've talked before about the impact of playing at home in MLS. Do you think that United have a chance to really start to actually stack up some points over this run of 5 games out of 6 at home?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not overly bullish. But if they were to do it anywhere, it would obviously be now.
They're now 2-1 at home on the season.
Yeah.
And we're arguably the better team in the third game.
And the MLS data really does wildly prove that like there is very much a home field advantage. You could argue that Molino's been out of the equation for a while. Finley, like he's like a loss, but it's not like crippling. And Darwin's here, which is huge. And I think actually, Mason becomes arguably one of the weakest parts of the team, depending on how he performs. But I don't know. He's shown good glimpses. So I don't know. Vancouver would be interesting, but I mean, it's just they can play so well, but then just be undone by poor defending. So it would be Minnesota United to beat the number 2 team in the Western Conference after doing what they've done over the last 5 games. So I guess why not? But like I said before, I don't want to repeat myself, but yeah, this homestand would say a ton about what this rest of the season is going to be. And that's not a cool take because it's just kind of like obvious. Like, of course, dude, like more data is going to show us more data, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I think it'll say a lot about what the team will be like the rest of the season.
Yep. And I think we'll know more as the week goes on about what the lineup's going to look like, because now we've got the question over. You expect that probably. I think Mason Toye probably starts, depending on Abu Danladi's health on Saturday.
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think that would be fine, and I'd be interested to see him play at least 60, 70 minutes.
I will say that Heath, when was asked about Mason's performance, and Heath was kind of a striker, attacking midfielder in his day. So it's really it's close to his chest, that position. He was asked about Mason's performance, and he was almost he almost rolled his eyes. It looked like this young kid, ugh. He didn't do that, so don't quote him on that one. But you could just tell he's he's pretty good, but oh my god, he's so young and dumb.
And which
he didn't say that, but he was thinking it. I could tell.
Well, but how do you fix that with playing time?
For sure, and that's why I think he should play.
Yeah, so that's I think it's going to be interesting. We're going to know more about Christian Ramirez's health as practice goes on throughout the week. What his prognosis is and how long he's going to be out with that. We obviously where Abu Danladi's at is another question related to that,
and also
the long-term question with Danladi.
Yeah, and also Dunladi, one of his biggest faults is his first touch and his touch in and around the box, and Toye hasn't shown that deficiency. So it could be a reason that Toye potentially functions really well too. So play Dunladi on the wing. That's what needs to happen.
So
with Finley out, Molino out, play Dunladi on the wing maybe. Come on.
It's an idea. We'll have to see about it. Last question for you, because I know you've been at training. How close do you think Maximiano is to appearing in a matchday squad?
I should check in further. They've just said that they really want to take things really slow, and it's when Ibsen and Schuller are pretty much doing the job on a nightly basis. It's kind of hard to really feel the need to yank them because they're both doing good things, right? Ibsen scoring winning goals, Schuller mopping up behind Ibsen. So I think they're just still on the path of not rushing him.
Yeah, so then because that's the question then with Gomez now and with Maximiano in the future, because Gomez came in for Ibsen in this game on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I don't think Ibsen's starting spot is under any kind of threat, but I'm interested to see how Gomez works his way into the team now that he's available.
I think the really interesting lineup question is, the team seemed to play better after he tweaked the formation, which was from the 4-5-1 to the 4-3-3. Played well. He brought in a center midfielder to and Colin Martin, in that mix. And you could argue wow, that's maybe where Maximiano could be fitting into this team, is if they go 4-3-3 more regularly or from the start. Then it's Maximiano potentially in there with Schuller and Ibsen. And that's really an interesting question now and going forward. But I just feel like he's going to maintain like his hard-headedness and not ever really use the 4-3-3 a ton. Even though
it worked,
provided dividends in this situation. But I guess I shouldn't be too cynical. I mean, he's the one who made the decision to change it, so maybe he's coming around on that. But that would be really
based on the players that he has, right? Like he's got players that fit it.
Yeah, that's the lineup question to watch going forward. Like that'll be really interesting.
Yep. So that is what it is. We didn't talk very much about the defense this episode, and I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
That's very good. I hope that we get to talk more about the offense than the defense moving forward.
Please.
Last couple of thoughts. Any thoughts on Arsene Wenger moving on from Arsenal? And the classy gesture by your boys, Sir Alex Ferguson and Jose Mourinho at today's game between the two sides, which probably Arsenal lost late in the game.
Yes. Manchester United is a classy organization, and that's the reason I'm a fan of theirs, partially. So, yeah, good on them. I think I didn't even fully appreciate Wenger. Like, you know, I've been watching the Premier League since like 2007, and that's right after he stopped being super effective. And that's what's been cool is like all the information that's come out now, just like as they recap his entire career. And this dude, like, a lot of people credit him with creating the Premier League, like, to the level that's at today. Like, it was like basically it was like the English top division when he was around, like when he first came into the job. And now it is what it is. You know, the best and most high-profile league in the world, and a lot of people credit him for creating such a competitive environment, and that is like unbelievable praise in my opinion.
You and I started watching the Premier League about the same time because I was right around 2008 when I started watching really seriously, and that's like Ferguson and Wenger were such fixtures of that. It's so interesting now that I think the longest tenured manager in the Premier League is Eddie Howe at Bournemouth, who's been there for 5 years. After like,
is that so?
I think
that's fascinating.
I think he's the longest tenured one because it's just like after Wenger, it's just.
Speaking of which, I would love to have Eddie Howe take over from Jose Mourinho. That would be fantastic. But that's a different
topic.
Sorry, you were saying.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because you have like seeing Mourinho and Wenger and Ferguson next to each other at today's game, who are all three such pinnacles of that like mid 2000s.
During that time, Mourinho was at Chelsea.
The mid 2000s like heyday of the Premier League, some of the best Premier League teams that ever happened.
Yes.
And it's interesting to watch that kind of seeming to fade away from the English game and maybe transitioning forward to new faces like Pochettino or like Eddie Howe or like all the younger English managers that are coming up through some of the like lower teams in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a ton of great English managers actually, which is kind of a funny thing. But but you know, Pochettino, Eddie Howe. Can we name one other younger manager? There's not
Alan Pardew.
No, and he's not good. So.
Sam Allardyce.
No,
love Big Sam.
Everton fans don't. So. I can't think of another the dude for Watford that like is supposed to be really good, the Portuguese guy.
We're gonna have to do more research on this and come better prepared next week.
Marco Silva.
Last thought, Champions League first leg of the semifinals both happened this week. Do you think that Liverpool can throw away their 5-2 first leg win?
God, I really don't. But like this has been the weirdest Champions League this season with the crazy comebacks. But no, there can't be any more. I think they're fine. I think they'll be in the final. I think they're going to play Real Madrid, and I think they're going to lose. But I think it's going to be really fun.
Yep. The Liverpool Roma game was fascinating because like Liverpool goes up 5-0 and they're like, this couldn't get any easier. And then you see Roma score 2 late goals at Anfield, so they've got away goals. And it's just you see the doubt creep in because like, oh, Roma already won 3-0 at Barcelona or against Barcelona to go through last round.
Yeah, against frickin' Barcelona.
Who said they can't do it against Liverpool? They only need 3 goals and they're not conceding.
Yeah. Except for no team has been more potent all season than Liverpool in any league. And if you're going to be pressed up trying to score, you're going to be vulnerable to a counterattack. And Liverpool arguably has the best counterattack in Europe. So it really doesn't set up well.
It doesn't look good. So we're probably set up for Liverpool or Real Madrid in the final, which is going to be an interesting spectacle. I kind of agree with you. It's going to be really hard to bet against Real, but at the same time, I think
they could win. They could win.
Liverpool should at the very least provide a good show.
I would think so.
Which that would be my expectation for that. And we're entering the month of May. This is our last recording of April, which is the month of trophies and season endings and all of that in Europe. So we'll get a chance to look at that in addition to Minnesota's now long-term homestand and beautiful spring weather, which all kinds of MLS teams get to come into TCF Bank Stadium and enjoy in the coming month. Now that it's not finally frickin' snowing anymore.
This week I felt like I woke up and I live in California now. It's awesome.
Nick and I both got severely sunburned in the last week, so
Yep.
I started applying sunscreen now, though. I'm good.
I have a tan now. I'm good.
You are kind of tan. You
tried.
tan very well for a white guy.
That's surprising.
At least that's
I'm-
what it looks like right now.
Because I'm one of the nerdiest guys you know. It shouldn't work that way.
I know it shouldn't. It doesn't make
shouldn't at all.
I've been looking at the whole show actually, kind of like thinking about it.
Are his stats right, or is he reading the MLS screen right?
You can't be nerdy and tan. This makes no sense.
Well, now that you guys are talking good stuff about me, we have to be done with this. All right. So
Yeah, that's how you know we've gone on too long.
We have gone on way too long with this. So thank you all for listening. Please feel free to send us all comments on Twitter on that. Give us the like, subscribe, review, read our content on zonecoverage.com. We're putting out a lot of good stuff on all sports.
Check out Tom on Tinder.
Links training camp, Vikings draft coverage, which was awesome this week. I know nothing about the draft, and our guys did an amazing job filling in on that.
They did a fantastic job.
The amount of content they cranked out is absolutely incredible, and they do great work. So anything Minnesota sports, the Twins continued suffering, which I find kind of funny, but, you know.
They broke the 8-game losing streak. Okay.
They had an 8-game losing streak?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gross.
And they just lost 2 out of 3 to the Reds, who were the first team in the majors to lose 20 games this year.
Yikes,
Yep.
bro.
Yep.
Not great.
Mulder out.
But
Kidding.
we've got all your coverage of all of that stuff on Zone Coverage, so please check it out. For Nick
Does
Hallett.
Wiggins play for the Twins now? Is that
Burn it all down.
double sport reference? Yes.
Burn it all
That's
down.
a bingo for everyone.
That's Nick Hallett at Prince Hallett. Tom Schreier, T. Schreier 3. I am David Naylor at Prof Cedar. This has been the Minnesota Soccer Podcast. We will see you all next week. Wolves in 9.
Later.